Hey guys, it's that time of the year again that we take a look back at the year that was and all the fantastic video games that we've played. Now this year was a bit strange for me because I was sick at the beginning and then I was doing my thesis work for the rest of it. So I really didn't get a chance to dive into many titles that were released in 2018. So instead of doing a top 10 games of 2018, I'm doing a top 10 games that I played in 2018. The good part about this is that most of these titles are on sale right now on all the platforms pretty much. So if any of them are of interest to you, you can pick them up for really cheap right now. So without further ado, the top 10 video games that I played this year. Assassin's Creed Origins. I used to love the Assassin's Creed series. I have fond memories of playing Assassin's Creed 1 with my friends at their house, passing the controller to each other in between of deaths. Yeah, it was completely buggy and almost completely unplayable, but the principle and the general concept of it was so enthralling that it almost made up for all those cringe-worthy futuristic bits. Enter Assassin's Creed 2, 2.5, and 2.75, and that hit the perfect balance for me of good gameplay, which sometimes innovated a bit too much, with a great story and a great setting. Come on, it's a stylized version of Renaissance Italy. What's not to like? Then Assassin's Creed 3 happened. The best part of Assassin's Creed 3 was, and spoilers here, the opening where you get to play as the bad guy and not know that you are playing as the bad guy. The gameplay was okay, the story was really not very good, and the protagonist was the most white-bread indigenous man I have ever seen. And from that point on, I kind of dropped off. Although I tried to play Assassin's Creed Syndicate this year, it didn't really pan out. After a few hours, the gameplay became really grindy, and, you know, being forced to play as Jacob Fry, I really kind of threw him off of some buildings just because I could, which is never a good thing. Imagine my surprise when I started playing Assassin's Creed Origins. Here we have an open world for the first time in the franchise history in Egypt, which is beautiful even on my old computer, and a story with a protagonist that I don't hate. Having said this, the game does have its share of problems. After 20 hours, I started seeing the same tombs and the same scenery with the same animals, and it became very repetitive, and you could see where the team cut corners to get this product out the door. The flashbacks to the future are back, and again here I had a mixed feeling. Although the protagonist in the future is, I think, part of a lesbian couple, which points for diversity there, guys, the story is weak, and I don't really feel anything for these characters. Assassin's Creed Origins finds its place on this list in this spot because I'm torn as if I could recommend this. Yeah, it's really good for what it is, it's beautiful, and it's something really nice that I can just come home after a long day and not put much mental effort into and just play a few mini games or go hunting or, run around and pretend that I care about these citizens' lives. But at the end of the day, it's not something that I would sit down and choose to play. It's something that fills that niche of I want something to just kind of veg in front of and play. Grow home/grow up. Although these are technically two different games, they're similar enough that I'm lumping them together here, and in fact I would suggest not playing these back to back as I was quite fatigued halfway through Grow Home because I had just finished Grow Up. The aesthetic on these are just so cute, so bright, so just, it's just such a joy to play. I think if that's the one word that I would use to describe these games, is just pure joy. In both these games, you play as a little robot that's trying to get back home, and you just run around the world. Everything's very vibrant, collecting all these items, making plants grow to go pretty much anywhere in the clouds, and just so much fun. This is just a very light, rompy game that you can pick up and put down with no hassle whatsoever. Orwell. Orwell, named after the author George Orwell, is placed in a dystopian future where you are hired by Big Brother to prevent terrorist attacks. As you comb through people of interest and their lives, you get a dirty feeling that I haven't actually felt since Papers, Please. And it's all very unsettling. Now, I played through this trying to do what I felt was right, what I felt I would do in the actual situation, and you leave it with a dis-ease. No matter what actions you take, ultimately it's always the wrong choice. And after episode 1, I had to close the game down because I felt like a horrible person. So I would say approach this game with that in mind. Now, it is episodic, so there are 5 episodes to the original game, and then there's a DLC on top of it. So I would suggest playing this as a social experience in really examining how you feel when placed in this position. And have a friend or loved one nearby that you can talk about this with, because I will probably not go back to this game because of how it made me feel really horrible. But it's a very, very good game. Donut County. Again, this is another video game that came onto my radar quite late when this game was nominated for Best Mobile Game of 2018 at the Game Awards. There's not a ton I can say about this game. The gameplay is just ridiculously fun. You play as a giant black hole that is slowly devouring the universe. These gameplay sections are used largely to move the story along. Again, this is quite a short experience, about 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 if you're going for all of the achievements, but it's just ridiculously cathartic and fun. The characters are bizarre. There's not many games that I've ever played that you have a raccoon, a human, and a T-Rex talking to each other, and it just all fits. And it's just a great game that will make you smile. Nier Automata. Nier is one of those games that I never quite know how to describe. Nier is such a very strange game on paper. We're going to take hack and slash gameplay, put in anime boys and girls, set on a future Earth that all of humanity have been launched to the moon. There's no humans on the Earth. In a robot versus android war, and drop as many philosophical notions and philosophers in the game as humanly possible. On paper, this should not work, but oh my gosh, does it work. The gameplay is seamless, it's fun, the narrative packs a punch, although some of the twists I saw coming quite a bit before. The only thing that I would say is a downside to this is that the philosophy is a bit in your face. So if you know anything about these philosophers that they are mentioning, chances are that you already know what they're going to say. But this is really a minor flaw in the scheme of things. So going in, you should know that there are actually 24 endings, 5 of them being major canonical narrative endings, and the other ones just being fun little asides. Blow yourself up in the right place. Oh yeah, you get to blow yourself up in this game. You get an ending. Lose a boss battle, you get an ending. But the main ones, A, B, C, and D, all progress the narrative. So the first time that you hit that credit screen, just know it's not over. In fact, if you play through Route A, you get to the credit screen and you leave, you have about 50% of the game that you did not complete. So with that, I have to say hacky slashy good time and go robots! Beat Saber. I think if I had to actually order these games based on the most time spent, Beat Saber would beat everyone by a country mile. Let's be honest, playing Beat Saber is like pretending you're a Jedi. But you can tell everyone that you're doing this for exercise and get to play the game a little bit longer. So this is a VR game and the only one on the list. And I was only able to play this game because one of my friends bought a VR headset for himself and said I could go and play whenever I want. So this summer I spent about an hour or so in Beat Saber every day. And it does work as exercise if you put the level of difficulty up high enough that you actually are working out. But this is just so much fun, and there's a community that are actively making new songs for the game, so there's always new content out there. So if you have a VR unit, I would definitely pick this up. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This is the only AA game on this list, meaning that although Ninja Theory had some money, they didn't have a ton of money to polish off all the rough spots on this game. But what this game does, it does so well. In Hellblade, you are kind of playing as the title character Senua, but you're also playing as a voice in Senua's head. The protagonist Senua experiences voices and has visions, somewhat similar to what we'd call now having a psychosis. What's really interesting is seeing how this character kind of deals with this as she goes to the North's realm of hell to go and get her dead lover back. Where this game falls short is in the actual fighting gameplay, as it's a bit clunky and sometimes the controls are not as responsive as you would normally be used to. However, the overarching story and Senua herself is just so engaging. I do recommend playing this game with headphones so you can get the full effect of having the voices speaking to you and the narrator and the ambient sounds all mixing together and get the actual closest experience to what the character would be going through. I also recommend, if you're anything like me and a bit of a wuss, playing this when it's light out or having a big bright light on, because this game does actually skirt the horror genre quite a bit. Oh my gosh, this game is so good and so detailed, and it's just amazing to see that developers are talking about different human experiences. Deltarune. This game was a surprise and a half. And I'm saying game, but it's really not, so maybe it shouldn't be on this list, but it's my list, it's going on it. Deltarune is a free-to-play episode from Toby Fox's new game, ? Set in the same universe as Undertale. Now, if you've not played Undertale, the fandom has died down quite a bit, so now is a good time to jump into it. In Undertale, you can actually choose whether or not you save all of your enemies or if you kill them, and it changes the ending. Whereas in Deltarune, this is kind of usurped to a certain extent. Although these are not the same game and they don't seem to be sequels in any way, they are kind of in the multiverse, much in the way that comic books would be. So with that, I can only say pick up Undertale and go and download Deltarune, because oh my gosh, so great. Stealth release, amazing. Gris. I'll be honest, this game almost passed me by. It released in mid-December, and this is such a strange time of the year for that to be happening and for me to be thinking about picking up a new game. But one of my friends mentioned it, and we sat down and watched the trailer, and oh my gosh, is this game gorgeous. In fact, the backgrounds look like someone hand-painted it at times. Just so nice. Everything about this game is designed to make the player feel. Now, there is no dialogue. The unnamed protagonist is not one that speaks, and there's no narrator. Conveying emotion is done through the backgrounds and through the amazing soundtrack. I don't want to say too much about this game, because it's one that's best experienced. Now, for those gamers on a budget, keep in mind this is only a 3 to 4 hour experience, but what an experience it is. Everything FromSoft has made lately. Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne. Yeah, I know I'm kind of bending the rules with this one, but give me a break. If I wouldn't have done this, this would have been like half the list. But the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne have been by far my favorite games that I've played this year. I actually tried to play Dark Souls previously a few years back, and I didn't like it because I didn't have the time to invest and get hooked into the world and into the mechanics. And then with being sick earlier this year, I suddenly had the time, so I sat down, I put on the Bonfireside Chat podcast, and I just played through with them through the entire game. And then I picked up Dark Souls 2, and I played through the entire game. And although that game is good in its own right, it's not a Dark Souls, should have been named something different, but that's a video for another day. And then played through Dark Souls 3. Same thing, just listening to this podcast where they were playing through the same games as I was in the same areas that I was, and just going straight through it. And then I hit Bloodborne. And with the Dark Souls games, it's very plotting, very RPG, but not a power fantasy. You're someone who's literally nothing, building yourself up against these horrible beasts. And then you hit Bloodborne and you are a hunter, and basically your entire job is to kill these monstrosities, and you're fast, and the gameplay becomes swishy instead of plotting, and just, all these games are just so good in their own right that if you have the time, I would totally pick up at least Dark Souls and start there. And again, throw on Bonfireside Chat. It's on Duckfeed TV, link below. And just play through with them and have that experience. And yeah, you're gonna die. Your character's gonna die. You're gonna put down the game in frustration. You're gonna pick it up 3 days later. And then eventually the stars just align. Or maybe you get help. Or maybe you RNG and you just beat this guy because you took advantage of something in the environment, and you will feel so good. It is such an amazing experience. And that's why all of the FromSoft games from this generation and last generation make it to the top of this year's list. So those are my top 10-ish video games that I've played this year. What were your favorite experiences of this year? Are there any titles that released in 2018 that I should take a look into in the new year? What's coming out in 2019 that you're really excited for? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll take a look and play your suggestions. So until next time, happy holidays everyone, and I hope everyone has a wonderful 2019. I'll see you next time.